Hi guys, welcome to Makin Sawdust. I'm Kevin, and thank you for joining me. Today we are going to replace the blade, some cool blocks, the urethane tires on the wheels, and the drive belt. We are also going to address some frequently asked questions and some hot comments that people have asked. It's been obviously a pretty popular saw on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. There are a lot of similarly branded features, let's say, like many other tools that are on the market nowadays. Scroll saws, for instance. There's a lot of budget scroll saws, varying prices, and they are nearly identical. So that's one of the benefits of these older Craftsman saws, or one of the other branded saws, is a lot of these parts and a lot of these tips and tricks and the blades, things like that, are going to all be interchangeable. So we're going to address that too. We're going to lay this video out in chapters. So if you just need to learn tips and tricks on how to adjust your blade, we're going to have a chapter for that, installing cool blocks, and etc. So this is going to be very helpful if you watch the entire video for most of you folks that own one of these saws, and I'm going to try to provide the best value that I can for you folks. So stick around. So I'd like to remind you that I have a website, kevinswoodcreations.com. All of the links for these items for this saw can be found on one of my articles that I've written. And there's also variations of saw blades, different thicknesses, different pitches, and things like that right available there. I am an Amazon affiliate, so any purchase that you make following on those links directly supports Kevin's Wood Creations and Makin Sawdust. A couple Phillips head screws will pull the upper blade guard off. You'll need to do this if you change your blade, and gives us access to our cool blocks and an initial inspection of the bearing and stuff like that. We're also going to need to pull the table off. Just makes it a lot easier to change a blade, pull the wheels, and have access to those lower cool blocks on the lower guide. I'd also like to remind you, at the time of publishing this video, I don't have the article yet finished with all the details that are provided within this video, but it should be within a week or so, and there will be a link in the description and also a pinned comment that'll also allow you access to a downloadable user manual, parts guide, parts list, blow up diagrams, and all that. So pop on over to Kevin's Wood Creations to read that. First thing we're going to do is take the blade off. One of my first tips is just loosen the blade just enough so your blade will pop off. And with these 3-wheel saws, that's going to give you an added benefit of putting that blade back on. It's awfully hard to get that blade put back on sometimes. So just enough to pop it off. While we're here, we can give this wheel a quick spin and check the bearings on here. There's actually 2 bearings in each wheel, one on the back side, one on the front side, and they're just kind of a slip fit into the wheel itself. Also pay note, the front side and the back side of the wheels when you go to reinstall them, if you do take your wheels off for replacing the tires. Next thing we'll do is we'll take this old belt off. It's not in terrible shape, and we're going to use a Allen key on the bottom there, I think it's a 5/32, to loosen up the motor, and it'll kind of swing and loosen up our belt when we pop it off. Now that the blade's off, it's a good time to give all the wheels a good spin. Listen for any type of noise, any type of wobble, vibration, anything that seems out of the ordinary. If they spin really good, you're probably okay. Like I said before, each one of these wheels takes 2 bearings. They're the same size. I'll have a link in the description and also in both of my articles on my website, and you can purchase these bearings. It's easiest to take the wheels off to replace the urethane tires, and it takes snap ring pliers. I do not have a set of snap ring pliers, so I have an old set of jeweler's pliers that I modified with a little wheel on my Dremel. And you know what? Use what you got, not what you ain't. Using the right tool for the right job is very important. As you can see, I actually have to spread these pair of pliers out to get the snap ring off. And a common set of snap ring pliers actually you squeeze the handle and you can pop the snap ring off. Now it's time to take the old tires off. I'll just use a screwdriver, a little nail puller tool to work your way underneath the tire. Some manufacturers, there's actually an adhesive that holds that tire onto the wheel, and you may have to clean that off. In this case, there is no adhesive, it's just stretched on the wheel. So take our tires off, give them an inspection. These ones are really cracked, and that's why I went with the urethane tires. We'll do this with all three wheels. I think one thing that is important to mention, I bought these off Amazon, and like many things we buy off Amazon, stuff comes from overseas. Not this one. This is Sulphur Grove tool, made in USA for this saw. And they have a lot of other urethane tires. It also shows it fits multiple models. They have an email. They have a phone number. So give those guys a call. I know sometimes we're afraid to buy stuff from overseas, but in this case, it's USA made, so maybe we should support USA. Follow that link in the description if you have a bandsaw and need some tires. Not affiliated with Sulphur Grove Tool, guys. These are stretched on, and the instructions state that there's a seam on the actual urethane tire itself. You want to actually start with the seam, get the seam onto the wheel, and kind of start stretching it over. They talk about pre-stretching it. I didn't seem to need to pre-stretch mine, but this is a nice room temperature area. If you maybe have an unheated shed or something, you would want to bring these guys in the house, let them warm up a little bit, and that seemed to be a lot easier for me. Reinstalling the wheels is just in the opposite. Put snap rings back on. Be careful with your snap rings, because if one goes flying across the shop, you may not find it, and you're not going to be in business if you have a lost snap ring, guys. Trust me, it's happened. I bought a new Bosch blade. It is a 6 TPI. I'm actually going to do some light resawing with this. A pretty aggressive blade for one of these small saws. It's not going to give you a fantastic cut. When I'm doing a lot of my exotics, I actually run like a 24 TPI, sometimes an 18 TPI. Gives you almost like a table saw like cut. So that's one of the beauties of having a small hobby bandsaw. You save a lot of material, especially if you're using exotics, and there is a lot of functionality. I don't know if I can offer any magical advice on putting on a bandsaw blade on a 3-wheel bandsaw, because they are finicky and they can be very frustrating. Like I said earlier in the video, only loosen up your wheel just enough so that blade can pop off. And that is one tip right there. And then just go slow. Kind of work it around until the blade rides in that sweet spot of the urethane tires, and adjust your 2 knobs accordingly. Cut a few test pieces, a few scraps, and if your blade tends to walk to one side or the other, there's a good possibility you're just not tight enough yet. And also, we want to listen to the saw. Make sure it's not creating any excess noise when you're tightening up your blade. Next thing we're going to want to do is adjust our guide bearings. Our guide bearings are behind the blade, and they actually provide some support during the cut. If they weren't there, then there's a good possibility when you're cutting your wood, you're pushing the blade back, and your blade is likely to come off of the wheel. So you don't want that to happen. So you want just a teeny bit of space between that bearing and the back side of that blade. You'll also want to provide support when you're loosening or tightening these screws on the lower guide and upper guide. I actually broke my lower guide and I had to epoxy it back together. There are no replacement parts unless I would machine one my own, which in the future may be a possibility. So again, support your upper and lower guide when you're adjusting the bearing and the guide blocks. One of the last pieces of the puzzle is putting on the new belt. One tip, don't throw away your old one, because if it was working before, it might work in a pinch. Let's just say you hit a knot in a really hard piece of material and you end up burning your belt or breaking it or something, or it just malfunctions. Well, you don't want to be caught in the middle of a project without a replacement belt. So it's not crazy tight, just pull the motor back until she snugs up and tighten your set screws. I did have a comment. Someone was asking about the blade, or somebody was asking about the belt was rubbing against the pulley. And I was unsure if it was actually the pulley on the motor or the pulley that is actually the wheel on the bandsaw blade right there. I think it's actually designed so that toothed belt actually stays on the wheel and it does rub up against this side of the pulley there. So I don't think that's a problem. And that was, hopefully that can answer your question, the person that commented on that. And we are going to button the saw up, put the face on, put the table on, and we are going to make some test cuts. I am actually really bummed about these cool blocks. I thought I ordered the right size. I'm sure I measured them correctly. They're 3/16. Obviously, when I ordered them, I ordered 1/4-inch ones. These 1/4-inch Olsen blocks actually fit the 12-inch Craftsman saws and above. So I'm going to look on Amazon again and try and get some 3/16. Maybe they sent the wrong thing. Maybe they're inventoried incorrectly. But I will make sure that that link is in the description for the good cool blocks so you don't get mistaken like I did. So thank you for joining me, guys. I am super appreciative of each and every one of you folks that is liking my videos, subscribing to my channel, watching my videos, and giving me quality comments and feedback. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I'm in a dirt shop. I have my house above me. Dirt floor, dirt walls. If you've not seen any of my shop tour or any of my bench build videos, there's a playlist that you can pop on right there in the end screen and watch some of that stuff. That's going to tell a great deal of story to where I'm working and what space I have. Now get out in your shop and start making some sawdust. Thanks, folks.